Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com for football picks and other picks. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Later today, Deontay Wilder is going to fight Artur Szpilka for one share of the heavyweight championship. And interestingly enough, there is a great advertisement. It's really well edited, going around here online, on YouTube, from Showtime, the network that's going to be broadcasting the fight, right? And in the clip, it shows Deontay Wilder dropping a bunch of guys, looking charismatic. In one part of the clip, he knocks the guy down, he turns around, he sticks out his tongue. Now look, I understand he's unbeaten. I understand he has a share of the belt. I understand he was an Olympic bronze medalist. I know a lot of fans are out there looking at these dramatic knockouts, looking at, his power. And they're saying, wow, he's young, he hits hard, he's charismatic. What could possibly go wrong? Now let me say this. I don't know who wins tonight's fight. And I'm serious when I say that. I don't. Right? But what I want you to do is to find that Showtime ad. It's a 30-second clip. In fact, at times, Showtime's even had it in front of my video, right, on the fight. What I want you to do is to look at that ad carefully. You're going to see the holes in Deontay Wilder's game because all of the knockdowns are long right hands, right? Not just right hands, they're long right hands, right? Now, my point to you is, this is boxing at the highest level. When we start throwing around the words championship fight, you can imagine the guys the champs fighting are high-level contenders, right? This is the world-class level. I'm just here to tell you that if a guy's primary weapon is a long right hand, if that's his Sunday punch, a lot of guys, a lot of opponents are not going to put themselves in harm's way. They're not going to be far enough away from the guy, distance-wise, spacing-wise, to be hit with a long right hand. I'll even go further, right? The guy's going to try to duck under, get inside, be underneath that long right hand. We just haven't seen the highlight where Wilder is shortening up that punch, right? So you could even be on Wilder's right side, right? You could even be over here. As long as you're not at the proper distance, Wilder might not be able to do anything with you. Right? Think about it. Let's face it too. Maybe Wilder has, maybe, a short left hook. Right? Maybe. That's debatable. We know he has the long right hand. Now, we know he's a tall man. Right? Very tall, very athletic. He can move around the ring. Right? We know he's a tall man. We know that that long right has reach on it, right? He has long arms to go with the height. If you're living off of one blue chip punch, one, and size, I'm just here to tell you that there are a lot of heavyweights who would make you pay, right? If Luis Ortiz, who is two-handed, were to get inside on Deontay Wilder, you're talking about Wilder having problems. I'll agree Ortiz doesn't move that well. But just understand, guys looking at films of Wilder know that they can't linger outside on his right side to be vulnerable to that straight right hand. Understand too, some other guys might even stay outside and dare him to throw it because they know the straight right hand isn't going to hit them in the chest. It's not going to hit them in the body. It's a headshot. right? So you understand, since Wilder throws that punch and he's flat-footed when he throws it, that's a great countering opportunity, right? You could be outside, you know he's going to throw it up top to your head, so when he throws it, you could just dodge the punch, then come in with whatever you want. Now, Szpilka is shorter than Wilder. He's a southpaw. He'll be able to duck under Wilder's jab. In other words, Wilder throws a left jab to keep you outside, so he can then take you out with that long right hand. If Szpilka knows what he's doing today, what he needs to do is to just play distance, right? Don't be long range, where Wilder has ring coverage, where Wilder can actually land that long right hand. Be mid-range or short range, right? Come inside, chop down the tree. Hit Wilder in the body. If Wilder's moving around the ring trying to position himself where he could throw that long right hand, you move around the ring with him, right? Not so much to dodge punches. You're moving around the ring with him to prevent him from getting the spacing to throw that long right hand, right? If Wilder doesn't have the spacing, he might not throw it. Understand, a lot of times when you're watching these fights and these guys are hardly throwing any punches, it's because their defensively aware opponent is depriving them of the opportunity to throw the punches, right? So, I'm expecting a spirited fight. I'm expecting someone to get knocked out because both of these guys are accustomed to doling out punishment more than, defending themselves. I don't know whether Szpilka, who doesn't seem to me to take the extra step once he gets inside, I don't know if Szpilka is disciplined enough to get inside and stay inside, to fight the fight that Andre Ward fought against Alan Green when we thought Alan Green was dangerous. Same type thing. Alan Green looked deadly when he could extend his arms. He fought a guy who prevented him from extending his arms. He looked bad, right? Deontay Wilder's a guy who likes to extend his arms, right? If he's unable to extend his arms, he then resorts to windmilling. Now, I know many of you are going to think back to the Sergei Lakovic fight that Wilder had, right? Where Wilder is throwing short punches in that fight. But understand, Wilder's a guy who needs to soften you up first, right? He lands a heavy right hand, then of course he jumps inside and he starts to windmill a little bit, right? That's when he tries to throw the shorter punches. In my opinion, when you're awake, when you're alert, Wilder doesn't have that ability, right? If he doesn't open your door with a long right hand, he doesn't know how to enter the room, right? Let's shift gears. Let's talk about the other fight. Now, I don't know enough about Martin to have an opinion on this fight, but what I want people to do with Glazkov is I want folks to look at his fight against Malik Scott. Now, Malik Scott is shooting a jab, and he's moving around the ring, right? That's Malik Scott's game. And I'm just here to tell you that Glazkov just couldn't keep up. I don't care how the fight was scored officially. Just understand, Malik Scott really won that fight. And Malik Scott, with a mobile game, showing some mobility, kept Glazkov resetting, kept Glazkov unable to get off his A game, right? So, in my mental notebook, I view Glazkov as a guy who, even though he won, a bronze medal himself as a super heavyweight in the Olympics, I feel Glazkov is a guy who's vulnerable to mobility. You can take away Glazkov's volume by simply moving, hitting, and running, right? In my opinion, that's a big hole in his game. Understand, Malik Scott was the one landing jabs, not Glazkov. Glazkov did not seem able to me to cut off the ring. right? To dodge Malik Scott's jab, to, systematically try to break down Malik Scott. No, Malik Scott's able to stick and move that entire fight. And of course, only in boxing could we have had, two champions, Vladimir Klitschko and Deontay Wilder, in the heavyweight division, right? With Klitschko really being viewed as the consensus champion. Klitschko loses to an opponent. In other words, Tyson Fury's not dodging anyone. Tyson Fury takes on the consensus champion and beats him. And of course, in boxing, Tyson Fury then gets stripped by the outfit who now is putting up their heavyweight title for this Charles Martin Glazkov fight, right? Give me a break, right? You're going to strip Tyson Fury for what? Fighting Vladimir Klitschko? For winning the title against Vladimir Klitschko? Let me go one step further. Maybe Charles Martin is the second coming of Sonny Liston. Who knows? Right? But how did he somehow jump in front of guys like Alexander Povetkin in the hunt for the heavyweight title? I don't get it. I thought Kubrat Pulev only lost to Vladimir Klitschko. How did Charles Martin, who hasn't even fought Vladimir Klitschko, jumped in front of Kubrat Pulev? Fans need to start throwing red flags on some of these sanctioning bodies, right? Really, if I told you that Tyson Fury was stripped of one of the belts and that two heavyweights were going to fight for that title, how many of you would have picked these two heavyweights for that title fight? That's a bit ridiculous, isn't it? Well, anyway, it's so ridiculous that it's reality because it's boxing, right? That's a farce. Let me close in saying there are reports online that Luis Ortiz, promising heavyweight on the rise, is thinking of joining Freddie Roach's stable of fighters. Now look, I know I'm going to lose a lot of support here, but let me just say, if you're in your mid to late 30s, and you aren't a guy who stays up on your toes, right? Skills you learn as you come up. If you're really a flat-footed guy who likes to work inside, if you're not Malik Scott, if you don't float around the ring, if you're a guy who's more stationary and who's more of an inside threat, then I'm not sure exactly what Freddie Roach can do for you. Right? Understand Luis Ortiz is older than Miguel Cotto. Right? He's older than Cotto. Understand, too, Cotto, who I know many people are looking at as a fighter who Freddie Roach rejuvenated his career. Understand, though, Cotto has moved in fights. Right? If I were Luis Ortiz, as good as Freddie Roach is an excellent trainer. But if I were Luis Ortiz, I would have to concede that being nimble on my feet and moving around the ring is not something I'm going to be able to develop in my late 30s. Right? I would realize that my strength is really in deconstructing opponents and coming inside and making adjustments inside. And I would have to pick a trainer who, quite frankly, is adept at that kind of game. In other words, in my opinion, in some ways, Luis Ortiz is like Juan Manuel Marquez. If I were Ortiz, the trainer I would really try to target would be Nacho Beristain. Right? A guy who, is going to have me doing what I do best, playing chess inside. Right? Let me point out, too, that Ortiz's current manager is not doing a bad job. Current trainer is not doing a bad job. Right? But if I were Ortiz, I'd be thinking more Nacho Beristain. If I wanted to lift my volume inside, maybe I sign up with Brian Jennings' trainer, John David Jackson. Right? I believe that fighters really need to work with trainers who know how to, accent their strengths. Right? I just don't know the Freddie Roach fighter who fights like Luis Ortiz. When I think Freddie Roach, I'm thinking more of Manny Pacquiao, Miguel Cotto, Victor Postal, guys who move around the ring and who, really key their attacks off movement. I know Luis Ortiz was up on his toes at times against Brian Jennings, but I don't view Ortiz as that kind of fighter. Let me add one more thing. There's trash talk among the fighters. You know that, right? Just look at any Adrian Broner weigh-in, right? There's trash talk among the promoters, right? Guys are suing each other, right? Golden Boy suing, other people and stuff like that, right? Bob Arum and Oscar De La Hoya, even though they used to work together, now, at times, the guys are less than complimentary in talking about other promoters. Okay, just understand that there's also trash talk in boxing among trainers, right? It's unusual, but it happens. And you're seeing it here with Timothy Bradley. Timothy Bradley moved from Joel Diaz to Teddy Atlas. Right now, I personally feel that Joel Diaz is a world-class trainer. I've seen Joel Diaz with other fighters. His brother, right? And Joel Diaz in the corner had his brother doing great things against excellent opponents, guys like Sean Porter, right? Well, I know Joel Diaz is a world-class trainer. Freddie Roach has come out and has said, hey, man, I don't see any difference in Timothy Bradley with Teddy Atlas than the Timothy Bradley who was with Joel Diaz, right? Let's all appreciate the trash talk, okay? Teddy Atlas hasn't responded. Let me just say, I actually see a difference. I know I personally lost on the Brandon Rios Timothy Bradley fight. I thought, okay, maybe Bradley gets a decision. I didn't see Bradley getting a knockout. Then, of course, I'm watching the fight. Bradley looked to be sitting down at his punches a lot more to me. Right? Bradley, is moving and stuff, but there are moments where Bradley comes in, plants his feet. He actually got the stoppage in that fight. Right? I want people to think about that subtle difference. As Bradley fights Manny Pacquiao, who's fresh off surgery. Right? I personally feel here online, as does Terrence Crawford, world-class fighter, right? One of the best in boxing. I personally feel that Timothy Bradley won the first fight against Manny Pacquiao, right? If Bradley can box and strategically pick his spots to go flat-footed, right? Bradley has a chance, in my opinion, at a knockout. People need to understand that Manny Pacquiao has been stopped before in his career, right? He was stopped in fights before the Juan Manuel Marquez fight. I'll say this too. When Pacquiao went down against Juan Manuel Marquez, folks, he was down, right? That's not a slip. No, that's a knockout, right? So just keep in mind, Brandon Rios is a warrior. With a few rounds to go in that fight, Brandon Rios had enough, right? We didn't see Brandon Rios pull the cord when he fought Manny Pacquiao. Think about it, right? You didn't see Brandon Rios pull the cord when he fought Mike Alvarado. Think about it, right? The Brandon Rios who fought Timothy Bradley had enough. Right? His butt had been kicked enough. It was time to jump out the plane. Right? I'm just telling you that sometimes the best time to fight a guy is when the guy is rusty, hasn't fought in several months, and is coming off surgery. Right? All of that is present in the Timothy Bradley Manny Pacquiao fight. Right? I know, folks are going to look at Bradley with Atlas and stuff like that. Just think about the possibility. that Teddy, and I've seen Teddy do this in fights, that there comes a time in the fight where Teddy turns to his fighter and says, look, man, close the show, right? Take him out, right? Bradley is in that zone where he's fighting for legacy, right? The bank account's taken care of. The family's taken care of. He has the big contract with Top Rank. He walks down the street, people know who he is. He's part of the Manny Pacquiao legacy already, right? He's been involved in big fights. Didn't he fight Marquez? Right? Didn't he fight Devin Alexander? Right? So he's been involved in big fights already. Didn't he fight Lamont Peterson? Right? The bank account's taken care of. Really, the only reason Timothy Bradley is still in the sport is because, like Miguel Cotto, another guy who's financially secure but who continues to fight, is because these guys love the sport. There's a mountain out there, and they need to climb it. You know the personality type, right? The guy is watching TV. He sees another fighter. He thinks, hey, man, I could beat that guy. You know, the guy realizes, hey, man, you know, this is the victory lap part of my career. I need to leave my mark, right? Even though Bradley, Cotto, these guys have belts, you know, they already could walk in a room and people say, yes, the former middleweight champion or the former welterweight champion, right? That's not enough, right? You can imagine Bradley looks at Pacquiao and he personally feels, I'm sure, that he was injured in that rematch. By the way, he still goes 12 rounds in the rematch, right? He knows he was not 100% in that rematch, right? You know, some fighters just have unfinished business, right? Pacquiao for Bradley's unfinished business, right? Don't be surprised if Bradley has a bit of Billy Conn in him, right? Billy Conn's beating Joe Louis. All he has to do is move away from a relatively immobile heavyweight champion, and the belt is his, right? Famous fight, the Pittsburgh Kid. Billy Conn decided that wasn't enough, right? He wasn't going to just back into the heavyweight title, right? A decision against a Hall of Famer wasn't enough. He needed to see if he could close the show, right? Understand, when you look at Timothy Bradley, and he's still trading with Ruslan Provodnikov late in the fight, right? When you look at Timothy Bradley, he's still hanging around Jesse Vargas late in the fight. And he has these fights. What on the scorecard? Just, you know, you cannot rule out Bradley late in the fight against Manny Pacquiao thinking, look, this is my night. They didn't give me the respect I deserved when I beat him the first time, when it went to the judges. Here, I'm going to leave no doubt, right? He's with a trainer who's going to have him sitting down on punches later in the fight. We already know that because they've worked the Brandon Rios fight, and that's exactly what Timothy Bradley did, right? Pay close attention to the odds. I'm telling you, Vegas, I'm sure, is going to give you crazy odds on Bradley by KO. Crazy odds, even though Bradley's just coming off a KO win. Right? Think about it, right? I'm not saying to just bet Bradley by KO. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is part of your betting portfolio should be to sprinkle just a few dollars on the Bradley by KO prop. Let's remember, this version of Manny Pacquiao's coming off a loss, is coming off inactivity, is coming off surgery. How do you know that he's going to be the same Manny Pacquiao? He himself has told all of us that he was injured and was not himself in his last fight. Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Enjoy your weekend.